Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my basement, what I affectionately refer to as my wormery, or at least this part of my basement, where I've got all these bins using worms to break down compostable materials, household waste. And among all my different worm bins, I've got a variety of different types of worms. One of the types of worms that I'm using are nightcrawlers. And there are different types of nightcrawlers. For example, this bin over here and that bag over there, they've got European nightcrawlers in them. And these two bins up here on the top left, they've got African nightcrawlers in them. And I use ANC to depict African nightcrawlers, ENC to depict European nightcrawlers. My African nightcrawler systems have been plagued with little tiny white mites for months now. And I've tried everything under the sun, almost everything, to try to deal with the problem, try to reduce their numbers, and I've got to admit, it's been working. I've tried starving the systems, I've tried drying the systems, I've tried adjusting the pH level. I've even gone so far as to use this neem oil, which evidently interferes with their ability to behave normally, so it kind of causes them to not want to eat, not want to reproduce, and eventually their numbers should taper off if it works as planned. So I've given these systems about 6 days now, just sitting here with a fresh feeding, covering up with plastic to allow for the recirculation of moisture. The whole plastic covering, the whole feeding thing, those were things that were just being withheld from these systems for the longest time. But now that they're being treated with the neem oil, I've wanted to let those other aspects of these systems get back to normal to a certain point. And as of today, these are my two oldest systems. This is now a 200-day-old system over here on the left, and the one next to it is a 175-day-old system. The two oldest worm bins that I have at the present time. And the material in the systems is really nice. So I do want to eventually get to harvesting the material out of these systems and relocating the worms into new environments to let them get working on new materials to break down. So today I wasn't really planning on feeding. All I wanted to do was check in just to see how things are doing. And I figured I'd just grab the camera, shoot a little video of it while I'm at it, just in case anyone's been following along. There's a whole string of videos on this topic on my channel about it. So we're going to get these up on the bench, take a closer look at what's happening in these. We'll start off with the older of the two systems. And here, it's a plastic tub, but you'll notice it's lined with it's a VERMIBAG. VERMIBAG is a product line of different types of worm composting bag systems, all made out of these fabric materials. And this is what they refer to as the VERMIBAG tote, since it is designed to rest within some sort of a tote or a plastic tub or something. And it just happens to be that this the larger size of my, is this the larger one? No, it's actually the smaller size. I've got a number of different size plastic tubs. These are actually bus boxes that I use. And it did seem like this VERMIBAG tote would fit pretty nicely inside of one of my smaller size bus boxes. So I've decided to run it this way. Even though I've got a wooden frame too for this bag, which I've run the bag in its wooden frame before, but I just figured I would actually try running it within a tub the way it was designed to run, just to see the difference. And it's a little bit better at holding on to its moisture content than when it's running in a wooden frame where all the sides of the bag are exposed to airflow. Here, since it's within a plastic container, it definitely holds on to its moisture much better. Alright, whatever. Having a hard time evicting this one worm. He's kind of poked through the piece of paper. We'll try to go quickly here, so I don't have to go crazy worrying about worms that are over on the plastic. I always worry about the plastic drying out and all the worms that are on it being harmed by that dryness. But we won't be in here for too long. Like I said earlier, I don't know about you, but I've always liked castings to have this capability of just crumbling away from each other and not tending to stick to one another, and that's what I've got in this bin. And it's not surprising because, like I mentioned earlier, this stuff's been it's gone from a regular everyday consistency to extremely, probably overly dry. And I think that overly dry environment might be what we're seeing out here on the edge. Probably explains why we're not seeing any worms within the material. That's not true. I see a couple all the way out here. I guess we have to dig all the way down to the bottom where it is a little bit damp, more damp. I could feel it with my fingertips when I go down in there. So there are worms in all reaches of this container probably. However, on the outskirts, they're probably down deep. I'm thinking that down the middle, we're probably going to find the most, because that's where I added the feeding 6 days ago. But yeah, this material, pretty much where I want it to be. And the fact that I'm running the plastic cover has been helping to restore moisture to the contents of the container. You know, last time we were in here, this stuff probably didn't have this kind of moisture content to it yet. It was probably still a lot drier. So the plastic coverings are definitely helping with helping to equal out the moisture content in here. The only moisture that's really been added lately is the neem oil itself, which is in a spray bottle form. And I probably sprayed a good cup's worth of material, neem oil into this over the course of 2 applications, I believe. Because I don't know, the neem oil, I wanted it to be near the food, you know, so I think even with the last feeding, I applied the neem oil pretty much down where the food was only. I don't think I treated the entire contents of the bin, although I might have. The first time I applied it, I definitely sprayed it all over, stirred it all together and everything like that. I can't recall how I applied the neem oil last time. So I'm still definitely dealing with mites here. I could tell right away. All these little tiny white specks covering the food scraps, I believe, are mites. I think we're going to run a little time lapse, which is something I like to do lately especially when I'm looking at a slow moving creature in my bin like the mites. And it's just so much easier to see them when they're moving, as opposed to just seeing them in their real-time kind of behavior, which is extremely slow. If we could observe them with the time scale kind of sped up, then we could definitely catch a lot more of them visually. Let's do that really quick. I'm curious. Check out some worms squirming away too out of the light. So now to get this material from its current state, as you see it now, all, you know, mixed up. There's a bunch of food scraps in here. There's a piece of asparagus. There's the stem of some sort of a vegetable. A lot of the stuff we see littering the bin are just chunks of the bedding we've been using over time. Could be chunks of leaves, could be chunks of paper, a little bit difficult to tell. But it's this diving behavior of the worms that we observe when we shoot the bright lights and we watch their activity over the course of a few minutes. It's that behavior of theirs that we're going to be able to leverage to go through sort of a first skimming of the material. So all this material on the top surface, you can pretty much be ensured has been depopulated, evacuated of worms. Not entirely. I might have dug a little too deep. But you get the idea. If you skim off that top layer real gently, a little bit at a time, you'll be able to tell for sure if you're skimming off any little tiny worms with the material. But you don't want to. You want to leave them behind. And then that material that you skimmed off, which would also include all those chunks of debris in here, leftover food and bedding, it would be this stuff that you go through a second layer of separation, not light, driving the worms away from the stuff, but taking the stuff and mechanically separating the really fine castings from the stuff that's mixed into it. So that's kind of where I'm headed with this in terms of processing the material at some point soon. And you know, there's nothing to say you wouldn't be able to do it today. I could do it right away if I wanted to. But I'm thinking that maybe if we left the worms to go a little bit longer, they might break some of this material down a little bit further. But it's really very arbitrary. It's also kind of dictated by the fact that I might need to go out and pick up some more bus boxes to run these worms in. So I've been wanting to relocate them into boxes like this. So in this case, I could probably just reuse this box for one of the systems when I relaunch these worms into their new environments. But the other system is in a shallower tub, and I'd like to step up to a deeper tub when I get those African nightcrawlers in that bin relocated too. So still just trying to pull together the bits and pieces I need to execute this plan. But I really look forward to doing it soon. Definitely doing it soon. As far as the food scraps from last time, it does seem like they did a good job wiping it out. Definitely see leftovers, but not much. Not much at all. Here you can see more mites on the paper. So after looking through this material, I think number one, I'm pretty satisfied with the consistency of the material. My concern and wanting to check in primarily was dictated by a desire to not see this stuff clump up, so that it is going to lend itself to a fast and easy processing once I get around to harvesting them. Prerequisite being that I've got a place already set up for them to go once I do it. And the food supply, you know, I was just curious to see how that food we gave them last time was holding up, which, you know, I didn't really expect it to hold up for long, considering how long these bins had been deprived of food. The worms were probably ecstatic to find the fresh feeding. And with that feeding, you also get the moisture that comes along with the foods that they're getting. Most everything I feed is frozen, and as frozen stuff thaws, it, you know, starts to emit some of its moisture. And that's kind of helping to hydrate things in here too. So I like the way things look in here. I'm going to go get the other bin. So here you can see there's no bag, no liner. It's just a plastic bus box, but it's the shallow type. The configurations are pretty close to each other. I like to run systems in tandem if possible. So I've been doing everything I can to run the VERMIBAG tote as well as this system, since they're both African nightcrawlers, in a way that I can compare how things look in any one of the bins to the other one, and have the other always as a point of reference. You know, kind of like troubleshooting or benchmarking status or anything really. Gives you little clues as to how things are doing in your bin, I believe, by doing it that way. If you're lucky, sometimes you might benefit from having that sort of information handy. Wow. It's always interesting to see how certain sections of material get nibbled away, probably driven by being sort of maybe a low spot in the plastic. Maybe that was where a lot of moisture was collecting, and, you know, as a result, drawing a lot of the inhabitants of the bin over for a little sip. Not much difference really. Here too I see little white dots. I'm sure once we get down into where the feeding was placed, we'll see more. Here I would kind of expect the material to not have a tendency to lose its moisture, and, you know, as a result be a little bit more damp, but I don't see much difference. I think I'm seeing pretty much the same thing here. Even here we've unearthed a couple worms that are venturing out into that slightly more dry material, but still inhabitable, even if it's not the best in the bin. I'm guessing the best is probably going to be right where the food was added, which is probably where the majority of the moisture is. Everywhere throughout the material there's all kinds of little scraps, you know. And if I didn't have plans for these worms to move on to go do different things, or just to give them a little change of scenery, different location to do their work, I could have just left this thing to go as is. Let them really work down everything that remains in here. Over time, it would probably be castings only. People would probably be criticizing me for not giving them a fresh space to be in. I like to sort of do little weird experiments with my worms. You know, let's shoot another little short clip of time lapse to see what this stuff here looks like. Once we stir it up, we'll be able to better see any slow-moving creatures on the fast playback. Anticipating mites being in here too, but maybe not as many as in the other system. I kind of have these working theories at times, and right now I think that that other system might be where there's the greater number of mites, but seeing things this way might give us a better tool for comparing. So you got to admit, the material in this bin is very, very similar to what we saw in the Vermibag tote. Even right down to the number of mites. I would almost say that we've probably got a similar number of mites in both systems. Most people would probably just question why I'm even reacting to it, because it's not dreadful. It's not plague levels. Although, you know, it wasn't too long ago, if I would have taken out a piece of banana peel like this and laid it out, it would have been, like, you know, virtually covered. Maybe a piece of melon. They definitely seem to really enjoy certain types of food. So if you put that type of food into your system, they're just going to come swarming for it. One of the methods I was using to try to round them up and then extract them for a while was baiting them using melon and whatever, stuff like that. But, well, you know, at some point, hopefully, I'll be able to separate these worms from their beautiful castings as well as from this mite-infested material. I really hope it enables me to give these ANCs a little fresh start, sort of, into a new space. Not only will the new space be bigger, but it'll be, well, let's see, I've got, let me tip this up here. You can see that it's actually two tubs, one within the other. And the reason is you could see inside too. Oops, gotta be careful not to spill too much. See, I already spilled a little bit over here in the corner, but yeah, you could see how if I got into a slightly too damp situation, the tub would just start spewing liquid out the bottom, which is something I tend to not have happen. So luckily I don't leave a big mess behind all the time, but like here, for example, these are the marks of exactly that happening, and I think it might have actually been these containers at some point too, so it wasn't that long ago. It would be nice to upgrade to new tablecloth at some point and get this place looking respectable. So, you know, it does appear to me like if I wanted to pull the trigger on relocating the worms, I could probably do so almost immediately. I could just start sifting this stuff, letting the worms dive down into it using some bright lights, and then skim off the material through the sifter. I don't know, all the little leftover chunks of uneaten food and stuff, probably just dump it in my outdoor compost container. Let it continue out there. We've definitely got summer-like weather here in my central New Jersey location. Less heat running is probably going to generate less and less of that really dry, heated air, allowing for a little bit more moisture to sit in the air rather than it all being basically dried out by the forced hot air heating system in the house. And once the temperature gets nicer and the heat stops kicking on, I think the humidity levels in here will definitely increase. I think it may have been the other side where I saw more mites. Here too I can see so many little tiny white specks, and I know that they're all mites. I might actually go ahead and put a playlist together of all these African nightcrawler videos ever since I kind of started realizing that the number of mites was just a little bit more than it should be. And then kind of showing the fluctuation of results as we went from strategy to strategy, always trying to reach the same goal of reducing the number of mites in the system, possibly even eliminating them. And, you know, doing so in a way that it causes the least impact on the worm population in the bin. I think that the worms would probably, if they had a chance to vote on which they hated the most, they would probably say they hated the dryness, because that's got to feel real unpleasant for a worm. Luckily, there was always a space in there that they can retreat to where they can be comfortable, but it was the top surface that was being really hammered with dryness for quite some time. But that's pretty much it. That's all I was looking to do. I wanted to just check in and see how these systems are coming along. I would have to say that they're pretty much tracking perfectly in the method that I'm hoping for in terms of food reduction, particle reduction, as well as, you know, maintaining that looseness of the material. Shaky, easy to sift, I believe. And, you know, there's really no reason I wouldn't be able to start tomorrow. But like I said, I've got some other things that need to be taken care of before I could jump ahead to that point. But that's it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, as always, please remember to leave me a thumbs up. That's always really appreciated. And also, if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel too. That's really appreciated as well. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.